Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
And next week, single digits. That will lock up those back bays. There will be spearing going on, I'm pretty sure. It's going to happen real quick.
Oh, incredible. The lowest I've ever seen it.
Maybe there's a chance for some snow bear fishing before Christmas.
I fish, I hunt, and always will. Broadcasting from the Prairie Sportsman Studios. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. We're not just a radio show anymore.
Heck yeah.
This is Sporting Journal Radio.
Yes, it is. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in on the network by demand at sportingjournalradio.com. You can download at your favorite podcast downloading place, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you very much. That's Dan Amundson right over there. Dan, how you doing?
Doing all right.
Dan, do you still like to deer hunt?
That's a good question. Some days yes, some days no. Someday I'll stop doing it.
You think so?
I think so. I don't know. It's rifle hunting for sure. Yeah. There's too many people, not enough deer, and I've got better things I can do with my time, but I like spending time with family, so I'll keep doing it for that. That's
the best part of the gun season for me, is the tradition with family. But
is that why you don't do it anymore?
I don't do it anymore. Well, I don't do it anymore because I get busy that time of year, but I bow hunt. And our family tradition was in Wisconsin, and that requires 5 hours of driving and an out-of-state license and a lot of expense. And when I was doing more waterfowl guiding, we were always busy around the gun season in Wisconsin. So yeah, I kind of got out of the tradition, and it wasn't the same as it was growing up. I know you still have the tradition in Minnesota with your grandpa and your dad, and you guys went up to northern Minnesota this year for that. How did that go, Dan?
I've had better. I didn't see a deer while hunting, and I saw a lot of hunters, so as to be expected, but I saw more wolf sign in the woods than deer. I'm not going to say that's why I didn't see a deer, but it makes you wonder. That's all I'll say about that. I don't want to get into that this week, but it was a fun weekend up north, and we'll get back at it in a couple weeks.
I did not shoot my target buck, but I got fresh back straps that'll be going on the grill. I'm pretty excited about that. Didn't punch my tag last year at all, so I'm glad that I got a tag filled. And with our trip to Alaska coming up this year, I was a little worried about how much time I was going to be able to bow hunt. And the year before, when I did shoot my deer, I think it was like the last week of the season, and it was cold. And what did you say to me, Dan, after the end of last year when we went out there and hunted the last week of December and you were filming me? I'm pretty sure it was something about don't make me ever do this. Don't ever make me do this again.
Well, I think I was sick.
Yeah.
It was cold. You kept missing. So I was getting real sick and tired of. Well, and the one time, the worst. So I was filming. You drugged me out you didn't drug me.
I did. No, I did not.
Dragged me out to film.
Here, what's this smell like?
And these deer come in and like, hey, I don't have it in frame. I can't get this deer in frame. You go, I don't care. Thwack. I'm like, well, all right. That's why am I out here, pal? Luckily you missed, so we got another shot at it again. But so I told you, yeah, don't make that mistake. Shoot a deer before December, so at least we can do it when it's warm.
Well, and that's why I shot at that deer, because I know you had enough of it in frame and enough. You had the audio and you had enough.
I think
footage.
I had the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's enough for you, sure.
Well, we hit her pretty hard last year. We went out and hunted hard in cold weather. And Dan, you were a trooper. You were there filming it the whole time. And honestly, I knew you weren't feeling good. I was trying to get it over with. So that's why I didn't care that you didn't have the best shot in frame. And,
well, I cared.
Well, I know.
Because it makes me look bad.
Well,
it made you look bad anyways.
I missed, and I smoked a tree. And you can see that reel on my Instagram page, by the way. Follow me on Instagram. Follow Dan on Instagram, at Bret.Amundson. Dan, what's yours?
Oh, hang on. There, read that.
Oh, at Dan_Amundson.
What about reading here?
And of course, Sporting Journal Radio, you can follow us on there too. And by the way, if you saw the beginning of this, if you're watching this on YouTube and you saw the intro to the show, the very first clip with those pheasants coming into the food plot that I filmed, I've got that as a reel on my Instagram page. Dan, it just went over 500,000 views on it, which I know nobody else cares, but it's crazy to me, 500,000 views. And it is some of the comments I get on it. It is some of the coolest pheasant footage that they've ever seen. And honestly, it was the coolest pheasant footage I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it, and I still can't believe I got it. But you can see that video. Just rewind this show to the beginning or check me out on Instagram and you'll be able to see that. We got a couple new sponsors for Sporting Journal Radio that we're going to talk about in 1 second. But first, let's talk about who's going to be on this week's show and who our sponsors are this week. We've got Joe Henry coming up. We're going to talk a little bit of deer hunting, and then we're going to talk about spearing on Lake of the Woods and getting ready for ice because it's cold. We're going to be building ice early this year, so we'll talk about getting ready to be up on Lake of the Woods. Also, Garett Svir has been out there chasing big steelhead. He caught one. We'll find out where he caught it, how he did it, coming up in just a little bit. And we'll check in with Lucas Mertens from Haybale Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake, where they'll be getting ready for ice fishing right about now with all their snow bears. In fact, they've probably been getting ready for a while. So we'll check in with Lucas here in a little bit. Dan, who are the sponsors this week?
This week, we've got Haybale Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Book a trip to Devil's Lake at haybeleheights.com. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. On X, know where you stand with On X. Then Prairie Sportsman, watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel or check your TV guide for air times.
Well, coming up in a few weeks, we're going to be getting on a plane and we're headed to Alaska. It's a bucket list trip. For me, duck hunting in Alaska has been a bucket list trip for me. I'm sure you're excited about it too, Dan.
Sure am.
How can you not be? We're going to Kodiak Island, and we're going to be chasing harlequins and longtails and barrows, golden eyes, and all sorts of other ducks, and just seeing what I've never been to Alaska. So just getting to experience what Alaska has to offer. Meeting some of the local people out there, and I may be doing a deer hunt. I don't know, most likely just chasing ducks around. Well, we're going to be filming it. We bought a whole bunch of nice fancy camera gear we're bringing up there. We're bringing 5 hard drives and all sorts of storage. We plan on filming a lot and creating this film. We want to make it full of eye candy, really cinematic, tell us some really cool stories, and show some of the best duck hunting that Alaska has to offer. It's for North American Waterfowl. So if you don't follow North American Waterfowl Show on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, check it out, follow it. We got some really cool stuff coming up for it. Boss Shot Shells will be our title sponsor for that. So Boss is going to present the Kodiak, a North American waterfowl film. Also, Sitka is going to be involved. We get to wear some of the Sitka waders while we're up there on the shores of Kodiak Island. I'm pretty excited. And when we talk to them about it, like, yeah, we're going to Kodiak, they're like, oh, yeah, you're going to want some of this gear to stay warm up there because it is going to be cold. From what I hear, it's already snowing up there. There's been snow on the ground, and it's going to be some interesting weather conditions, which I'm pretty excited about. So watch for that coming next year, but we'll be talking about Alaska. I'm sure we'll have a bunch of footage that we'll put on this show right here starting in December. We're going up the first part of December, so check it out. Headed to Kodiak Island with North American Waterfowl. I'm so excited about it, Dan. I cannot believe that we're going there in a couple of weeks.
I think it's going to be one of those things like when we went to Tazen, how I didn't quite believe it till we got there. I think it's
Right.
going to be the same thing.
Man.
I'm not going to get, well, I am excited, but I'm not going to get too excited till I actually see that the place is real.
Yeah.
Because it might not be. What if people are pulling our legs?
Mark Smith from AGLOW, the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Riders, he's the one that invited us up there. So Dan and I are going to go up there with Mark. We're going to hunt with him, and then he's got some of the locals on the island that hunt and fish every day. They love to do it. They're really interesting people. They're going to be taking us out, so we're going to be learning about them. They've got this really cool dog that loves to retrieve ducks in the ocean. So we're gonna get to experience this ducks. We've got some really cool stories with this coming. And when I started to tell Mark what we wanted to do and what we wanted to capture with this film, he goes, well, you better plan for 2 weeks. So we're going up there for 2 weeks. I big, a lot of times it'd be like a 3-day hunt in Alaska, or whatever. No, we're going for 2 weeks. And
well, and with the weather though, it might be a 3-day hunt. We just don't know. So we might hunt for 14 days straight. We might hunt for 3 days straight and have to try to get out of there. And we might not get home for 4 days. We don't know. And hopefully we're home for Christmas.
That's why it's a 2-week trip, because you never know. You get, especially when you get on some of those small planes, if the weather is not right, they're not going to take off, which I'm okay with. So we're giving ourselves a nice buffer. So thank you, Sitka. Thank you, Boss. And we've got some other sponsors that are real close to being a part of that event too. So hopefully we'll get them on. And if you want to be a part of that, if you have a product or something and you want to sponsor North American Waterfowl, the film from Kodiak Island, let us know. We got a couple of new sponsors here to Sporting Journal Radio that we're excited about. They'll be starting here very, very soon. Live Target, you see me wearing the hat right here. Live Target will be a sponsor here at Sporting Journal Radio. So we're going to be talking about some of the brand new products that'll be coming out from Live Target. We'll give you some sneak peeks at some of the brand new stuff that you may not get to see it anywhere else. We'll tell you about some of our experiences. We'll be trying out some of the new products. We'll be doing some giveaways. So thank you, Live Target, for coming on board. And then Alclair Audio. I'm excited about this one too. Protecting your hearing is more important than you realize. You don't get it back. And if you shoot like we do and you spend a lot of time hunting, that shotgun blast can be so damaging to your eardrums. Protect it. Amplify the sounds. Cut out the damaging ones, and Alclair Audio does that with custom molded hearing protection earplugs, to simplify things just a little bit. And then they've been making like in-ear monitors for musicians for years. They're a Minnesota company. They're based in the Twin Cities. So we're really excited. We're going to be trying out some different hearing options. Even on this show, you get to see us wearing some Alclair Audio stuff. And then, of course, we're wearing them out in the field while we're hunting as well, too. So thank you, Alclair Audio. Some interesting weather is coming here to our region as well, Dan. We might be ice fishing pretty soon.
It's over. If you're a waterfowl hunter, earlier this week, regions got blasted with snow, and now everything's freezing up. So unless you're on a big body of water and it's been windy, chances are you're looking at ice right now. I don't even want to say it. You might be trying to go ice fishing right now, which if that's the case, stop, turn around, go home. It's probably not safe.
No.
But it'll be coming. I bet in a week, to be safe, I'll say a week and a half, we'll be hearing people going out on Red Lake.
I'm not ready for it. I'm not completely sold that our waterfowl season is over.
It's over.
It definitely could be. I remember, it was probably 6-7 years ago here in western Minnesota. November 7th is when our big water froze up. And I remember driving by, I was on my way hunting out there that morning, and I remember seeing the moon reflecting off the ice and thinking, oh, that's not good. But it'll warm up in a couple of days. That ice will be gone. No, it never melted, and our season was over. I think there was maybe a little pocket with a couple hundred Canada geese that we could pick on for a while, but it was all but over. So we're still just starting to get, I think, the big push of birds, and if things freeze up, they will fly right over. But I think we get a little bit more hunting in yet. Dan's not so optimistic.
Well, high aspirations, low expectations. If you live your life that way, you'll hardly be disappointed.
If you're a deer hunter, though, it's go time for that. And it's just this cold weather is going to make it even better. Man, we've been seeing a lot of activity with bucks chasing does around, and seeing some new bucks on cameras that I hadn't seen forever, really, for that matter. So if you still have a tag, whether you're gun hunting or if you're bow hunting, you should be spending a lot of time deer hunting right now, because Dan's just done with it. He's just done with it. He's done with deer hunting. He's done with waterfowl hunting. Doesn't want a pheasant hunt. Why aren't you fishing right now?
Because I have to work.
You don't have. I mean,
what do you mean I don't have to? Okay, well.
We went duck hunting this morning. He's gone. He's gone. All right. Well, Dan's going fishing. We're going to give you some fishing reports coming up here. We got Joe Henry on the way. We'll also talk to Garett Svir and Lucas Mertens from Haybale Heights Campground and Resort, all on the way.
Come ice fish the famous waters of Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world. Experience full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper house options. From the Northwest Angle to the South Shore, Rainy River and Baudette, the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleye, sauger, perch, and Northern Pike, Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, best fishing anywhere. For more information, log on to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, now we're going to head up to Lake of the Woods to check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, have you gotten out of the woods yet and started thinking about fishing again?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, I don't know about you. I love the deer hunting season. I just love it. I look forward to it and everything else. I'm not hardcore, but I try hard, And my goodness, we shot a good number of deer. My party did this weekend, so I think I am done. I still have a doe permit left, but we shot enough deer that I'm going to have some venison now. Everybody in our party will, and I don't need to really shoot anything else. I would like to go in the woods just to be in the woods, but St. John's has a football game this weekend, and my alma mater, and a few other things I can do. So I think I'm just going to hold off, and it's all good, man. I'll tell you what, sitting in the woods, good for the soul, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love it. I'll tell you what, I'm tagged out too. And as much as I would love to be back out there, I bow hunt and I love sitting in the stand. I'm glad I got my deer done so I can focus on some other things, because those days do get long sitting out there. And as much as I like to deer hunt, there's other things that I could be doing too. And honestly, right now, Joe, we're going to have to throw in another activity in there, because based on the forecast, people are going to be ice fishing pretty soon.
Tell you what, when you look at that forecast up at the Lake of the Woods, it's single digits. It's teens, and then next week single digits. That will lock up those back bays. There will be spearing going on, I'm pretty sure. It's going to happen real quick. So I would encourage those anglers that like going early, whether you spear, whether you like going out with your maybe your four-wheelers or side-by-sides or whatever the case would be, get stuff ready, because it is not going to be long. Right. And ice fishing season, is this a hair early, you think, if Lake of the Woods starts freezing up? Well, if it does, it could be a hair early. We've also had it before where, it's Mother Nature. So when you have that thin ice, we've had it where it's locked up and people have been out spearing, and then it gets warm and they got to back off. But, once that ice starts, we all hope for cold weather at that point. Why get warm now? We know it's coming. Let's just make good ice. And it's out of our control anyway. I will say this, that, we're so fortunate up to Lake of the Woods. We got a lot of very experienced resort owners, ice guides, outfitters, et cetera, that, once they're used to going on that thin ice. They take the precautions. They figure out where that good ice is early based on the freeze up and everything. And then they start marking those trails. In many cases, they do some grooming. If it snows out on that ice, they get the snow off the main trail they wanna stake, and that way the ice freezes thicker, quicker. And there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but it's going to be happening quick whenever it happens. And I always say that spearing will happen in those back bays usually in November, as we see it could happen this next week, perhaps. And then resorts normally get their day houses out. Those are the houses that don't have bunk beds in them, but just you go out ice fishing for the day, the hard-sided houses. They'll get those out typically right around December 10th, give or take a little bit. And it's hopefully we'll be on track this year, but I'll tell you that early ice fishing can be really, really good if you can get a bonus trip up there. Has anybody been fishing? I'm sure there's been people that have been out fishing on the Rainy River. Have you been hearing anything up there, or have a lot of people focused on deer hunting up there, you think? You know what? The people that have been fishing have been rewarded. This is the time of year that a lot of people that, fish that Walleye River in the fall, the Rainy River in the fall, that Walleye River, it is a Walleye River. A lot of people that fish the Rainy River in the fall are the same people that love deer hunting. And, deer hunting is such a short season. So consequently, there hasn't been much fishing once deer hunting started. That's just the way it is every year. Now, for a few hardcore anglers who don't really deer hunt, I'll tell you what, they get rewarded nicely. They get the river to themselves, and normally there's some good fish in there that are quite cooperative. And then this is kind of a transition time for those resorts up there too, isn't it? Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, these resort owners work hard. So some of them, this is the time they deer hunt. Some of them have gone on vacation to maybe a warmer destination, getting ready for the big ice fishing season. There's a lot of work that goes on during the off season. It's building new houses, painting existing houses, prepping existing houses, make sure all your light ice rigs are ready to roll mechanically, making sure that your people hauler trailers are ready to go mechanically. I mean, there's just so much work, all the ice augers and all the equipment you need, and just there's so much to it. And then just making sure that in today's world you're staffed properly to, maintain all the aspects of running a resort. So yeah, it's really a lot of work in the off season. The work doesn't really stop. However, I think a lot of the resorts will take just a breather, during the late fall, and because they know coming back, early December, it's going to be go time.
Yeah, for sure. Now, there's guys doing guided spearing up there, I'd assume then, right?
There are, yeah. In a few resorts, if people were interested in going up and doing spearing, and one of the things about Lake of the Woods is that we have a slot limit for pike, 30 to 40 inches you must release. You can get 1 over 40 inches per day, and your limit is 3 pike per day. So it makes it kind of hard when you're spearing because it's quite difficult to estimate length. So the people that spear up there, the guides and stuff, have different, techniques to estimate whether a pike is long enough or not, or if it's less than 30. And then they got some different tricks they use. But nonetheless, I know that Johnson's Walleye Retreat, I know the Bugsy's on Bostic, and I know Zipple Bay. Those 3 for sure I know do spearing early in the season. So if anybody wanted to get up and spear Lake of the Woods, I mean, you have a legitimate chance of getting a pike that's over 40 inches in some of those back bays. And it's also the first, one of the first games in town when it comes to any kind of ice activities, because we're so far north and we got those back bays that freeze up first.
Well, we've talked about cast and blast up there before, Joe, but I don't think we've ever talked about like a grouse hunting, pike spearing, cast and blast type trip.
Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, you're right, because grouse hunting goes late, and of course that's right when the back base. I'll tell you, I don't do much spearing, but I am just absolutely fascinated at watching fish, and so for that reason, I know I would enjoy pike spearing because I love watching those fish go into the ice. And I ask some of those people that spear, specifically the guides and resort owners, do you ever see anything besides pike? And they're like, mainly pike, but once in a while we'll see some nice walleyes come through based on where our houses are at. And it's just very interesting. Those pike, I mean, I communicate quite regularly with the Minnesota DNR up there, and they have a really good handle on things. Every 3 years, they'll do a pike sampling out of one of the back feeder streams where pike spawn. And there are so many pike that are over 40 inches in Lake of the Woods. And that's why they manage it that way, by the way. That's why they have a slot limit that's 30 to 40 inches you must release, is because they're managing it for a trophy pike lake. Heck, I had a few resort owners say, can you do something to increase the pike limit so we can get those darn pike out of here? There's too many big pike in here, and other people are saying, what do you mean too many big pike? Oh, yeah. My goodness,
That's funny. Well, that'd be fun to do. And I'm the same way. Like, I'm not a big pike spearing kind of guy. Honestly, with my big pike, it's usually a catch and release type situation. But the coolest part about spearing is being able to see all the fish and all the life under the water. It's like having an aquarium at your feet. You get in one of those dark houses and close all the windows, close all the doors. You got a big hole cut, and during the day, that light just lights up the world underneath the ice, and you can see all sorts of critters down there. And I mean, whether you're like, we did some sight fishing through the ice last year where we cut open a big hole, and your neck starts to get sore after a while because you're staring down like that all the time. But it's really cool to be able to see what's going on in the water like that.
Well, so we, of course, the other thing to consider with Lake of the Woods is that our water is stained water. So, you're spearing in relatively shallow water, whereas, you go to some lakes in Minnesota with clear water, you might be spearing in 10 feet of water, and you might be able to angle for perch and do some different things that way too, because you can see all the fish. Lake of the Woods is a little bit different that way. But I think nonetheless, why would people want to go up to Lake of the Woods if you've always wanted to get a pike over 40 inches, by spearing? That would be a reason why. And it's it's really the first game in town as far as spearing goes. But our water is stained, Bret, and consequently they gotta be. I think they're usually in about 5 or 6 feet of water when they're spearing.
Yeah, the shallower. It's kind of wild sometimes, especially when you get later into the year and you've got 4 feet of ice. Sometimes that those guys are cutting through to fish or to spear. Sometimes it's a lot of ice and you're in real shallow water. Well, it'd be an interesting experience up there, and maybe people just want to start thinking about booking an ice fishing trip for walleyes and sauger up there. Where should they go for more info, Joe?
And I tell you what, Brett, it should be good because those fish are staged in the late fall spots off that south shore, just like they should be. And of course, up in the different spots of the angle as well. But you know what? If folks want to find out more about renting a fish house, finding out where they can stay if they want to bring their own equipment, whatever the case might be, check out our website. And that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. This is Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you very much. Or if you've downloaded the podcast, we appreciate it. I'm Bret Amundson. That's Dan Amundson over there. And the other day, I saw a picture come through on my Facebook feed. I'm like, well, that's a big fish. And it's Garett Svir, so I'm not really surprised. And he joins us now to tell us about that fish and the other fish that he's been catching right now. Garett, how you doing?
Hey, doing good, Bret. Thanks for having me on. So we have been steelhead fishing. That's what we kind of focus on in the fall. Obviously, my nephew Mac and I guide steelhead on the Wisconsin Brule River in the fall. Then we do the Minnesota North Shore and the Brule River in the spring.
So have you been guiding lately, or have you just been out chasing fish around?
A good combination. So we don't guide on Lake Michigan, but in between trips, I've been able to sneak over and fish on the Lake Michigan trips a few times, which it's been pretty awesome over there. The salmon runs were just incredible. I mean, we ran into walls of salmon, that big black pods of fish that are so thick you can hardly drift through them. I mean, just incredible. And then what we've really been focusing on is trying to leave the salmon alone, honestly, and focus on big trout that are behind them eating eggs like you're seeing there, like big browns, big steelhead. And I've been fortunate that I've hooked into a few nice browns and truly a giant steelhead. The other day, one of the biggest that I've ever caught, it was 34 inches and, probably around 15 pounds.
Jeez. 34 inches. So look at that fish. And I didn't realize just how big of a, how big of a hump they get like that.
Yeah, that's a big male you can see. And the males will get those big humpy backs on them. They'll get that big hook jaw that you can see. Mm-hmm. And they'll get those real red spawning colors. Now, steelhead's a spring spawning fish, but these fish will run over into the rivers in the fall, spend the whole winter in the river, and then drop back out in the spring and lay their eggs on their way back out to Lake Michigan or Lake Superior. This happens to be a Lake Michigan fish. You can tell it's a Lake Michigan fish too. That back adipose fin is missing. So right behind the dorsal fin, you can tell that was clipped off. So that is a hatchery fish. They don't have much wild reproduction out on Lake Michigan, but it's really a food factory for these fish, much less sterile than Lake Superior. So the fish grow really big out there. So kind of some pluses and minuses for both. Lake Superior fish are 100% wild, but it's a pretty sterile environment that those fish grow in. There's not a bunch of food in the system for them, and so we don't usually see fish of that proportion. But we never see fish in that proportion.
Yeah, that thing is huge. So what are they eating over there?
I think the primary food source is alewives that drives everything over there. That's really the driving force of that whole fishery over there, whether it be salmon or steelhead. Alewives really kind of drive all that. And we don't have those in Lake Superior. We have smelt, which is kind of our driving force. But you see fluctuations in smelt populations, and it's a real sterile environment. It just doesn't have as much food, and so the fish just don't grow quite like they do over there.
So
our fish are 100% born in the wild. It's kind of neat to go out and catch fish that are not hatchery fish too. So I think there's pluses and minuses for both fisheries for sure. I definitely like to explore both.
Yeah. Well, and that's a testament too to their fisheries management over there. If they're producing fish like that coming out of a hatchery, catching wild native fish is neat too, but catching something that big. So is that your biggest steelhead then?
Boy, it's right up there. It's in the top 3 or 4 for sure. I've got one on the wall in my basement. Again, I wouldn't kill a wild fish, but I do have a skin mount of one that's right around the same length, but a little bit heavier fish, if you can believe that.
Wow.
from the same river system, actually.
And
I believe that fish, and this is really tough to tell, they have different subspecies of rainbows that they stock over there, and I believe that's a Ganaraskin is what that fish is. But they also have Arleys, and they've got a few different types of steelhead that you can catch over there. But I believe, based on the dynamics and the body shape of that fish, that's a Ganaraskin steelhead.
How do the tributaries over there compare to fishing the North Shore Superior tributaries?
It's a lot bigger water. So imagine more like fishing on the Mississippi River than fishing on the North Shore Lake Superior. You're fishing a lot bigger waters. Most of them are stopped by a dam instead of a waterfall, where we have natural barriers. Where I grew up in Two Harbors on the North Shore Lake Superior, up from Two Harbors to the Canadian border, we have natural barriers. So there'll be a natural waterfall that'll stop the migration of fish, and they'll continually try to jump it, as you've seen and captured some of the best images I've ever seen, actually, you guys. But they won't make it above the waterfall. And it's kind of the same thing on these Lake Michigan, Wisconsin tributaries, is that they'll continually try to jump the falls, the man-made the man-made dam, and they won't make it up there either. But that stops the migration of fish. So much like the North Shore, if you want to find a place that's going to concentrate a lot of fish, all those dams are going to concentrate fish because that's as far as they can make it on the migration. Yeah, that was a king salmon. I think what was kind of unique, and I don't live there, and so you got to take this with a grain of salt, is the coho run was just astronomical over there this year. The Wisconsin DNR must be putting a ton of cohos into Lake Michigan lately. And we're starting to see those numbers now, because I fish down there as much as I can in the fall. I try to be out there, a dozen times in the fall when I'm not guiding. And I've never seen the coho so thick where you could literally see pods of them moving upstream that were 100 fish at a time in some cases coming upstream. So if you are interested, we're kind of at the tail end of it now. The kings are dead for the most part on Lake Michigan. The cohos are kind of on the tail end of their life cycle. What's cool about it, if you go catch them now, is you can get those real beautiful ones that people kind of want to catch for a replica or a wall mounter with the fire truck red on them, the big red sides. And but the run, I've never seen it like this over here. Usually you catch a few cohos a day. You can literally go out now and catch, 30, 40 cohos a day with ease. Almost every stream from Michigan all the way down to Milwaukee.
Now, you don't guide over there, though, right? You just guide on the North Shore?
I don't. Yeah, that's I'm a tourist over there. I just like to go chase fish, and it's always fun to kind of explore too. If you spend a bunch of time on the Brule all fall, as beautiful and fun as it is, it's kind of nice to get out of there and go do something different too. I'm sure you get that with duck too. Isn't it kind of fun to go traveling?
Oh, 100%. We're going to hunt in Alaska here in just a little bit.
Are you really?
Yeah, and we're gonna shoot. We're gonna shoot some sea ducks up there, which are obviously our target species. But we're gonna, probably shoot some mallards or some ducks that we shoot around here too. But we don't get to shoot them around here with mountains in the background. Sitting on Kodiak Island, so it's a lot of fun. Now, when you're fishing over there and you're fishing these wider rivers and tributaries and streams, are you using different techniques than you would in the narrower? Is there more current on the North Shore tributaries? Are you doing different things?
That was a learning curve for me going over there, and it's made me a better angler all around, kind of learning how to fish these Lake Michigan streams. Because when I first went out there, our rivers are real narrow and pretty fast current, and we tended to use real small floats. I like to fish with a center pin reel, as you well know. Bobber fishing with eggs and beads and stuff like that is really kind of what I like to do. Mac, my other guide, he's more into the fly fishing aspect of things. And going over and float fishing on these bigger, wider streams, what I had to do is I had to use a lot bigger floats. So these bobbers were using our weighted in grams. And usually we use 5 or 6 gram floats with 6 grams of weight under it on the North Shore and the South Shore, Lake Superior tributaries. And I'm using more like 11 gram floats and, bigger floats with heavier split shot underneath them on these streams, just to kind of combat that slow moving water. What I noticed with the small ones, if I'd go and fish my gear from back home, is I would throw that out on the center pin, and as I'm drifting, I'm dragging that float towards me. So I'm drifting like, it starts out here, and I'm kind of pulling it throughout my whole drift, and it ends closer to me. So to follow a seam and keep going straight, I just had to use bigger floats and more split shots. So yeah, I have had to adjust my techniques a little bit. The other thing is the fish, Max had to adjust to it from a fly fishing standpoint. So like the Brule is really a classic fly fishing stream. Like you can go out there and catch them on spawn bags and bobbers like I do. But there's a lot of bug life there. If you pull a log out of the water, if you flip a rock over, you're going to see all these bugs. There's big stone flies, there's Hexagenia mayfly larvae, there's all this. Whereas these streams over there, I think probably because of pollution, that there's essentially no bug life whatsoever. So when you're fly fishing, you really have to focus on, a lot of times he's running just beads and egg patterns because, you're not going to catch much on these fish just don't see stone flies in the river. These steelhead have never seen a bug before. So he had to kind of adjust his tactics a little bit over there too. So what he's been kind of doing over there, and he did really well, especially on salmon, was swinging big intruder flies with no weight. So, we're talking flies that are 3.5 inches long, made out of craft fur. And you're kind of trying to do the same thing that somebody over there would be doing if they're a hardware caster, somebody who casts and you see that a lot on Lake Michigan, less on Lake Superior, but a lot of guys out there will cast spinners and spoons and try to elicit an aggression response from these salmon and steelhead. He's kind of trying to do the same thing with a fly. He's fishing a big intruder fly and swinging that thing, quartering it across stream and swinging it downstream with no weight on his line, but using some sinking tips, some OPST heads to get his fly down to where the fish are. And you put that in front of their face and kind of, they'll be on a nest. And if you kind of intrude their space and their baby making, they'll grab a hold of it just out of aggression, get it out of here. And so that's kind of a fun way too. And they hit those so hard, they'll about rip the rod out of your hand. So nice. That's a pretty exciting way to go fishing too. And an angler can do the same thing with a MEP spinner, a number 3 MEPs or a Vibrex is a really good choice down there in those streams this time of year. Little Cleos and Castmasters, but small ones you can fish in the river.
So are you done fishing up at the North Shore then, or are you going to try to fish a little bit more yet?
We got a week left on the South Shore. On the North Shore, I just do spring because the runs, especially with low water, the runs are pretty dismal on the North Shore. In the fall in the North Shore, you will get some pink salmon early, end of September. But unless you get a lot of water, you really don't see big numbers of cohos or steelhead. It's pretty low numbers of fish. But there's only a week left. The Brule closes on the 15th. And no, I'm going to be back over there. We got a handful of guide trips to wrap up still towards the end of the season here. And
now
fishing has actually gotten better. We finally got some rain in Brule last week.
Okay.
So the best fishing of the season, I think, is going to be this last week. I think it's going to be really super good here.
Man, the weather
right until the 15th at dark is when you can fish. So a half hour before dark.
We could have used a little bit of rain earlier this fall, I think, for hunting too. We're so low where we're at right now. I was going to ask you about that. What are conditions like? Have they been pretty low most of the year?
Oh, incredible. The lowest I've ever seen it. The Brule River is measured in cubic feet per second, and you can go to USGS website and see what the flow is at Brule. And, we consider 130, 135 pretty low water steelhead fishing. It was, 122 was the highest I've seen it all fall until last weekend. And so it just is low and clear. And it really cuts down the amount of water where you can fish too. You kind of know where the fish are going to be. They're going to be holed up in that deep, dark stuff where you can't see the bottom. But it causes some problems in that it really concentrates the angling pressure on those big spots too, where you can't see the bottom and where kind of all the fish are hiding out.
Yeah. Did you run into a lot of other anglers?
Yeah, it was busy this fall, and it just really concentrated the pressure on those big holes just because, a lot of that marginal water, it wasn't even an option because it was ankle deep or knee deep at best.
Do you find, I always struggle. I know fishing gets really good in the fall, whether it's steelhead or walleye fishing for that matter. But I just struggle because I get so excited to hunt. I love to hunt, so it's hard for me to fish. And last year we actually did some fishing in the fall. This year, not quite as much. We did a little bit up at the Northwest Angle and caught some walleyes, but didn't get much of a chance to fish much around here. Do you struggle with that, or are you just straight on? I put the guns away. I'm going to fish all fall kind of guy.
Man, I love to chase migratory trout and salmon out of all the Great Lakes, And so for me, I always say I wish fall came around twice a year and lasted 6 months each time. It's my favorite time of year. I want to be up early, out on the water every day somewhere. And there's just so many things that I don't even make time to do. I got a good buddy who's even catching, I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but he's even catching some big migratory coaster brook trout up on the North Shore. And we're talking, 20-inch plus fish. Now, you don't get a lot of them, but he's running into a few of those big brookies. And he's been, texting me, even, you got to come up here. I think I can put you on a world-class brook trout, But just so much going on, I haven't even made time to do it. And as far as hunting, I talked to you a little bit about, before the show when I first got on, that I used to really love to deer hunt, and I kind of even forgot it was opener last week. I just kind of got away from it. The area I hunted, Two Harbors, we have some property up there, and I've hunted there with my family for years. It's been so tough. There's just not really hardly any deer at all up there. And so I kind of lost interest just because of how tough the hunting was. But there are things that I definitely miss out on. I guess the big thing that I kind of miss is getting together with family, playing some euchre and having a few beers and talking smart over good food at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of deer camp, right? I mean, you want to go shoot some deer, but it's all about that tradition of getting together. And, the deer numbers up there aren't quite what they were either for a few reasons. One probably big 4-legged reason, I'm sure, up in that part of the world. Have you seen a lot of wolves up there? I'm
not a wolf hater by any stretch of the imagination, but it just seems like on my property in Two Harbors, there's just so many all of a sudden. Like, in the 90s growing up there, when we would shoot a lot of mature whitetails, you would hear some wolves howling at night, but you wouldn't see them during the day, where it's pretty commonplace to run into a pack sitting in your stand midday now. And I think it's the reason that we're starting to see them, and not just hear them at night, is there's just far more than there ever was. And, we kind of can judge that just by the amount of wolf sign, even on my property. I mean, there's, you run into kills like I've never seen in my life in the spring, deer kills. And you're like, wow, there was a few deer on the property. I found 3 of them now, and, tracks, and, it just seems like there's just an absolute ton of them right now. And I don't know that they have any natural predators, and so I don't know that I necessarily see the problem getting better anytime soon. But I'm not an expert on whitetails up there, but I think at least on our property, that's our biggest hurdle. There's just so many wolves.
Well, there's only one predator really, and that predator's hands are tied right now.
Yeah, I think that's us. Yeah, right.
Hey, I wanted to say too. Did you win any costume contests for your Halloween costume this year?
No, I didn't, but I did freak some customers out. So that was fun. That made it all worthwhile buying it. I had a group of customers that I had to get into a spot pretty early because we were on a few steelhead, and it was Halloween morning. And I had to get into the spot pretty early because it just had been busy and crowded, and I knew we were going to get on some good fishing. And so I got in the spot in the dark, and the customers met me down there in the morning at fishing time, a little before 7 a.m. And I heard them and seen their headlamps coming down the trail, so I quickly got my mask out of my pack and stood by the river. And I think they all about jumped when they came around the corner. So it was worthwhile to buy it anyway.
We should explain to the listeners, if they're not watching this, what your costume was, Garett.
It's just a horse mask. That's.
I like how this picture. It must be you and your son here, and you're just like in a. I don't, just a polo shirt or a jacket or something and blue jeans and a horse mask.
And a horse mask, yeah. It was not super well thought out, but it was, I pulled the Halloween costume off for sure.
It's honestly my kind of costume. I don't ever dress up, but when I do, it's usually something pretty basic like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I brought it down to the river, not to scare my customers in the morning, although that was pretty funny. But I brought it down there, and what I was thinking, it'd be good for my guide Instagram to stand behind them, and once they had a steelhead, then stand behind them in the horse mask. I was going to caption it something to the extent of all the great guides on the Lake Superior tributaries, and for some reason, I still get people that hire me.
That's hilarious. Or just
but,
off in the
I
distance.
forgot to do it. We caught some fish, and I was so busy netting and trying to take care of the fish that I never even pulled off my Instagram shots.
Would have been funny if you were just kind of off in the distance in the background, just standing there. Just a dude in a horse mask standing in the background.
Right, exactly.
Creepy. Well, we should give your guide service a plug. Slab Seeker Fishing. Garett, where do people find you? How do they reach you if they want to do some panfish fishing with you? If you be guiding in the winter?
Yeah, I got some cool things coming up. So winter trout opener starts mid-January. The reason I bring that up is you and I got to experience it last year, and we had some fun, right? It was cool. I'm
actually editing that for Prairie Sportsman right now. So sight fishing rainbow trout. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I think we had pretty good numbers that day, right? We had good numbers of fish.
Oh yeah, we had good numbers of fish. We saw some. I think you had a big brown that came through that you missed. I think you were texting probably at the time, maybe.
I think I was. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Yeah.
No, that was way cool.
It's kind of a fun adventure, and so people are starting to call and kind of book that. The season opens in Minnesota for inland trout water mid-January. I'd have to look at my phone and see what the dates are on that, but I want to say it's the 14th, 15th off the top of my head is the winter trout opener. And so we'll kind of be gung-ho for a few weeks doing that. It's really a different bite if you're used to just walleye and panfish all winter. People have been kind of excited to mix it up and do something different. We sight fish for them, so you can look down your hole and watch these rainbow trout come in, and it's kind of fun to interact with the fish. And you'll see some, it can be frustrating, as we've seen that day in Prairie Sportsman. You can see some big fish come in, and a lot of times those are the ones that you never get to commit on your lure. But some days you do, but it's fun to watch them race in and try to work those, and kind of an exciting thing to do. And then obviously panfish, we're going to do crappies and big bluegills, big trophy panfish all winter.
I'll tell you what, though, Garett, trout in general, just aggressive, angry fish. They're strong. Even the small ones, when you try to hold them, they squirm so much. You can feel even the small ones. You can feel how strong they are by just not being able to hold them. But being able to watch them come in, see how they react to whatever presentation you've got down there, crystal clear water. I think we were in, about 10, 11 feet of water, I think that day, or 8. We were on a slope. I think it was 8 to 14 or whatever it was. I don't remember, but you can see them. You can watch the entire thing. You can watch them hit it. You can jig them up, jig them down, whatever. But those little ones particularly are so aggressive. They usually cooperate pretty well as long as you can see them and you don't miss them. But it's hands down some of the most fun winter fishing I think anybody can have.
Yeah, and I always think about bluegills because I do a lot of both in the winter, and it seems like in really cold water through the ice, bluegills just get so lethargic and they move so slow. Where I think these trout are the opposite. They really thrive in that environment and they move fast as can be in that cold water. They fly in and fly out. Where just days before that, I'm staring at a Vexar and watching these bluegills slowly, methodically follow my jig up an inch at a time, and then these trout come in like kamikazes. You can barely see them in your hole and they're gone. You're like, what happened to that one? Then he'll fly back in and hit the jig,
Yeah, they're so much
if you
fun.
haven't done that, it's something to experience. A lot of my customers that, fish panfish with me, a lot of convinced them to do it. And now they do it every year. They're like, oh yeah, we got to set up our trout trip.
Well, we'll have you back on to talk about that again. And then we'll either have you tell that story here on this show or you can tell the story, or people can wait until they see the episode on Prairie Sportsman and see what it's all about. We'll have that in the next season starting in January, but we'll have you tell the story about why you don't cut a big giant spear hole anymore. Why
I will for sure. And there's days that I could do that too, but there was a time where things went bad for sure.
Sure. We'll save that story. All right. Garett, where do people find you to book a trip?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website. It's slabseekerfishing.com. Otherwise, a lot of people like the Facebook page. I try to keep it updated all the time with whatever kind of fishing shenanigans we're up to, even Lake Michigan adventures, which we don't guide. It's just Slab Seeker Fishing on Facebook. There's also an Instagram even. It's Instagram Slab Seeker Fishing.
Very good. Garett Svir, thanks for the time today on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day. Good luck hunting.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Ottertail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devils Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. All right, it's time to head up to Devil's Lake, Haybale Heights Campground and Resort with Lucas Mertens. Lucas, how you doing?
Hey, everything is good up here.
Yeah? How's it's been a good fall for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, harvest was, for once, it was pretty easy, actually. Harvest went well, and there's still a few people duck hunting. There was some fall fishing going on. The walleyes were biting real well here, but we're supposed to get a big storm coming tomorrow, so probably put an end to some of that duck hunting and probably the fishing, too, until ice up.
Yeah, we were excited for North Dakota. We were going to take a North Dakota waterfowl trip this week, as a matter of fact, and then we saw the weather forecast and decided maybe we won't drive into that.
Right. Yeah, I think some radio stations and TV shows are showing anywhere from like 6 to 15 inches for us. So I guess probably somewhere in the middle there.
Long range forecast, so lots of cold temperatures. You'll probably start building ice early this year, I bet.
Yeah, we might lock the big lake up a little bit earlier than we have in the past few years. So maybe there's a chance for some snow bear fishing before Christmas. I know, maybe one out of every 4 years or 5 years, maybe we get out and do some guiding before Christmas. So there's probably a pretty good shot at that this year.
And you added some more snow bears this year?
Well, we're going to run 6. That's kind of where we've been, 5 to 6 each year. We got kind of the same deal. We got the lodging. We got the guided snow bear package. Everything's just we're just waiting for it to lock up and get busy here.
Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to it. I know your ice fishing business is a big part of it. I'm not ready for it yet, Lucas.
Well, I don't know if we're ever ready for it until it's here. I mean, I'm not really ready for it either, but I am, but I'm not. It's hard to say goodbye to fall. Since we had such a nice fall, but it won't be long, and then we'll be talking about summer fishing. That's just how fast time goes.
Right. Do you have how soon or how far out are you booked up if people want to book a trip?
Well, I've been booking everybody just right after Christmas, like we typically do. If we get some good ice here, we'll go out and we'll do some exploring. Obviously, we'll walk out first and do some checking and build enough ice where we think we could run a snow bear. And then I guess if we get good enough ice, I'll kind of throw some stuff on social media. And, that's usually some really good fishing, that early ice. So I'll throw some stuff on social media, and then we'll see, if there's anybody out there that wants to go fishing, and away we go.
I don't think you guys have been as dry as we have been, but how are your lake levels right now?
Well, Devil's Lake, we rose about 4 feet this spring, and I would say we lost probably 1.5 feet to maybe 2 feet of that back again, which is pretty typical. Devil's Lake will usually drop about 2 feet throughout the summer, but our lake levels are great. We were dry this fall too. Our sloughs and our duck ponds dried up a little bit, but lake level we should be probably 2.5 feet higher than we were last year at freeze up. So
those dry conditions kind of help you get your crops out of the field, don't they?
Yeah, it was a good fall, and I think all it did was it kind of concentrated the ducks a little bit. Instead of them having, let's say 50 sloughs to pick from, they maybe only had 25. So I don't think it hurt the hunting one bit.
Man, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you saw the same thing over there, but we saw more pintails, I think, than normal. And then I probably shot more green-winged teal this fall than I maybe ever have. I feel like we've had green wings around forever. Yeah,
we did see some of the same things. And actually right now there's probably one of the biggest snow goose, kind of populations I've seen over here in a few years. There's just every field you look in almost has got, thousands of snow geese.
All right, we're on our way. We're coming.
Well, yeah, if you can get here before tomorrow morning, you'll be good. So.
That's the problem. Like, we were trying to time it for this week to come up there because we were hearing some good reports of snow goose numbers, and that's what we wanted to hunt was snows. I mean, I'd get into some mallards if we could get into them in the field too, but man, we're looking forward to chasing snow geese around. We're just really worried about what this weather is going to do to the migration. If they're going to everything's going to lock up and push them all out.
Right. Yeah. It very well could. I mean, it seems like they hang around and they get a real strong north or northwest wind. It seems like then poof, they're in South Dakota in no time.
How was deer hunting around up there this year?
Well, we opened last Friday, so we're about a week into it. I think our deer numbers are probably about the same as they were last year, but I'm looking forward to a little snow so we can see them a little bit better. I've been taking my oldest boy out, sitting in the blind every night, and we're seeing quite a few deer. So it's hopefully a little luck and we'll get one down.
Are you seeing bucks chasing does around?
Just starting to, starting to kind of chase them around a little bit.
All right. Well, if people want to get in one of those snow bears this winter up at Haybell Heights Campground Resort on Devil's Lake, what should they do, Lucas?
Well, they can call me direct. My phone number is 701-351-3130. They can go on our Facebook page or they can go on our website, haybellheights.com, to get all the prices.
Haybellheights.com. Lucas Mertens, thanks for the time today on the show.
Hey, thank you.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.